Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Audit and Administration Committee meeting for October 8th. If we could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Legislator Elner, if you could lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Again, thank you, everybody, for attending tonight. I'd like to call up our Commissioner of Finance, Mr. Lewis. Oh, roll call. It's not on my list here. Roll call. Here.
Present.
Present. Yes, Legislator Goldman.
Thank you, Chairman. Before we get started with the actual budget, I'd like to make a suggestion. We ask Tom Lannon and John Tully to come up and discuss some of the issues that we had last night and moving forward with computers and with vehicles.
They're both on the agenda for today. They'll be speaking tonight.
But for the first thing?
No, but we have an agenda. John Tully's second, actually, but we're going to get to all of that tonight.
All right.
Mr. Lewis, thank you for joining us tonight.
And we had such a great time last night that I decided to bring my first deputy with me, Sheila Barrett.
Hey, Sheila.
Hello. Hello. Thank you.
Fantastic. Mike, I just wanted to start up, maybe you can just give us an overview. I get a lot of questions about the tax cap, where we're at, use of reserve. Just if you can give us an overview of the spending on the budget.
Sure. If I go to page 15, so the allowable tax cap that New York State mandates, it's either 2% or the lesser of. So because we're still in inflation, the CPI is well over the 2%, so 2% would be the max that we could increase it to. When you do the calculation, it's well over $2 million more in the levy, approximately like $48 million. Because we're in good fiscal health, the county executive wanted to keep the tax levy the same. So that's why if you guys saw on either the website, which I hope you guys looked at, and your packet, the increase for the property tax levy is zero. The property tax rate is going from 2.85 per thousand to now 2.7 per thousand. So it did go down slightly. And that's due to the fact of the assessments going up. That's usually the adverse relation. So again, we had the taxing capability of going up to 48 million, but because we're in good fiscal health, we're going to use our reserves to fund some of these programs, and that's why
We're in good fiscal shape.
Yep.
That's good. All right, so we're on the first section, which is Department of Finance. This is pages 15 through 21. We'll open up to any discussions. Just a couple quick questions on page 15. I saw the sales and use tax is up to $79,050,000.
Yes.
You think that's a good number for us to be at, right?
I think it's a conservative number. The last few years have been astronomical, historical, but just to be fiscally conservative, we're in an election year, there's inflation, there's unemployment, there's so many other factors, but based on feedback from NISAC and from the state controller, in reading all their publications, I think 2% is a fair increase on the budget. And then again, because we are in good fiscal health, we could use it, we can use our fund balance to balance this budget.
Okay. And moving on to, I had another question for the interest and earnings, 424011.
Yep.
Last year we only had $2,750,000 in the original budget, and then we're asking the tentative budget for next year is $4 million.
Correct. With the help with Sheila and 3+1, as I've mentioned before, we are taking, I think an aggressive
Right.
approach, but we're now going into 12-month, 18-month, 24-month, fixed income. We have approximately, I believe, $60 to $65 million tied up in long-term funding, which is good because the feds just came down a couple of days ago, I think a quarter or half a point, but we're locked into that fixed rate. So we should definitely hit our $4 million target next year.
And
So that's another,
We've surpassed it in 2024, so.
yeah, as of now, we're at 5.4 million, and that's probably as of 9/30, September 30th, because, we have to wait for the bank statements to come in and.
Not
put the
October
interest.
31st yet, right?
Yeah, that's
Very
true,
good.
yeah. So that's what that is.
Okay, how about the use of fund balance 427161? Just give
Yes.
us an overview on that.
Sure. Which one is that again? I'm sorry, which one?
427161. Use of
161, okay,
Yep,
yes.
Use of fund balance.
Well, actually, I would like, can I just, if you don't mind, on the summary page, but also in the finance budget, we're using $6.18 million to fund our capital plan. We're using $350,000 for insurance reserve. Matt Bruno will talk about that later in regards to premiums going up. The use of fund balance is literally the last code that I touch to balance this budget. So it's 3.4 million as of now. And we're using our retirement reserve for $500,000 because of, mandated costs from the state.
Okay. Any questions or comments from anybody on page 15? Let's say Yaki.
Just a quick question about the sales tax revenue. What was your 56.4 million, as of what date was that?
Well, actually, we just got a distribution a couple of days ago. We're up to now 63,168,732. So,
63 million up,
so we're gonna.
three quarters, 60, you can extrapolate where we're.
Yeah, so I mean, if everything stays, we're going into the, into the holiday season, and I mean, again, I don't, this is crystal ball stuff, but I mean, if everything stays the way, I mean, we're gonna probably surpass 80 million.
And I think that would be a good thing for us to be conservative with the 4 million that you put in the budget. But obviously,
The last few years, we've been aggressive with using our fund balance, but what ends up happening is the sales tax surpasses the use of the fund balance, and that's why when we went before you guys to, present for the audit, we put it in different, buckets of money for these purposes. So we are taking that surplus money and reinvesting it into, into the general fund to fund these initiatives.
any other questions? I'll have another question for you, I guess. 427163, the use of retirement reserve.
Yes, that's the, that's in regards to the ERS bill. We got our rates. The rates are a direct result of the way the market is. If the market does well, then they would lower their rates. If the market doesn't do well, they raise their rates. It's a nominal increase this year, but this 500,000 will support the increase in the retirement expense.
So we had
We're calculating.
1.5 million last year budgeted. Right now, we
Because
haven't,
the rates were astronomical last year.
we haven't realized that yet, though. I mean, that'll come at the end of the year, I assume?
Correct, yeah, because we're going to pay the bill on December 15th.
So next year, we're lowering it to 500,000.
Correct.
To be conservative.
Correct.
Okay. Any questions or comments on page 15? Anyone from the audience have a question or comment? No? Okay, moving on to page 16. First thing that jumped out at me was, I guess, contracts, 54646, 85,000. Explain what that is for.
Sure. In the last few years, we've been putting $100,000, and that's comprised of our contracts with 3+1. If we put some money aside to, if we ended up going for a bond,
Armory.
You know, what else do we?
Right,
Oh, we have-
armory.
Yep, we have Armory in there, which is our
Fiscal
actuary.
advisors, yeah.
Our fiscal advisors that we have to do anyway, when we have our annual final, our filing with them.
Gatsby stuff, probably.
The GASB stuff, yep. You know, the auditors and stuff like that, so that's what,
Okay. And the savings incentive partnership that we started last year?
This was, if you recall, and I think it's in your packet, I don't have it in front of me, but I think this is the county executive's
Yep.
initiative. He still supports it. Bear with me a second here. It was a piece of legislation that they.
Yeah,
drafted.
if a county employee comes up with a good idea and there's money saved
Correct.
for the county, we could possibly reward that employee. To date, we haven't received that as of yet, or hasn't come to fruition.
Correct.
Hopefully it does. We'd like to see it stay, I guess, in next year's budget for $25,000. Pretty straightforward, and I hope that a county employee has a great idea that can save us millions, and hopefully they can get some reward in it. Anybody have any questions or comments?
On the page.
Yes, Legislator Elner, you have a question?
58008, health plans. I see that it's been reduced by about almost $40,000. Can you explain?
It's towards the bottom, third from the bottom.
40,000.
Looks based on the
Yeah, I'm trying
allocation.
to- Yeah, it's,
Well, it's also because of,
trying to think of what has changed.
well, it probably is one of our.
Less employees?
It's not, well, no, it's not
No,
less employees.
no,
It's,
less
I think we have one new employee that isn't taking the insurance right now.
Right, less employees that are participating in the
Correct.
insurance plan.
Yeah, that's going to fluctuate,
Right.
you know.
But we're comfortable with that number of $285,801.
Yeah, but, well, I
We
mean, when
don't
we,
have final rates, so those numbers, the 8,000 numbers, are going to be numbers that we're giving you the best, we're trying to give you a means for comparison right
Gotcha.
now, but we don't have rates from NISHIP, and we won't have them for another month or two.
Okay,
And life situations change, so that's where it is kind of right now. It's more like a picture at the moment.
yeah, I mean, the nice ship rates right now, we have conservatively, we put it 10% as an increase. As you all know, that could go higher than 10%, hopefully it'll go lower, and
I'm sure that's why Legislator Elner was asking the question, because it's from the original budget from last year, it's down, but the actuals for this year is way
When you have a
down.
vacancy, we always conservatively assume that there's going to be a family plan, and once that candidate comes on board, if the person is a single, you know, then that's what would drive it down.
Right, and people can change, right? They-
Sure, and they can get married, right? People
Lots
still-
of things happen in
People
the
still
year.
get married, right? So next year?
Or divorced. or
Oh,
have a
yeah, let's not go
baby,
down
or-
there. Okay, anybody else have any questions or comments for page 16? Yes, Legislator Nestorino.
So traditionally, the night shift has been about 8 or 9%, correct? And has it ever reached the 10% threshold?
Yeah, it has, and it was actually very interesting. I went to I think it was one of the NISAC conferences that said that one of the reasons why the health insurance rates are going up so high is because everybody's now on Ozempic and, you know, and all that stuff.
Poison.
Yeah, so that's one of them. So that's what they said.
Yes.
Just to support Mike, the private sector, as we're public-private sectors, 11.2. So it can get up there, so Mike's 10% is right on the money.
This is conservative.
Very, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Bruno.
He loves insurance.
Insurance, right? All right, very good. The next portions are pretty simple. This is all the, let's see.
Yeah, so pages 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21, these are really just auditing, bookkeeping entries where we have to show the revenue in the general fund, but the capital fund gets the expenses, and then there's transfers in and out. It's a dopey thing that the state came out with, but. it
You
is
guys
what
are
it
staying
is.
on top of it, that's all that matters,
Yep,
right?
yep.
All right, very good. Thank you for that. We're going to move on to the next item here is purchasing. I know John Tully is here somewhere.
Okay. Yeah, we're gonna vote.
You might as well stay there, Mike.
Want me to stay
Make
here?
yourself comfortable. This is your night, Mike. Good evening. Hi, John, how are you? Good, thanks. Thanks for coming. Pages 23 and 24 we're up to. On 23, I guess my quick questions, I see rebates are still in there for $50,000. The actuals are down low, but I'm assuming that's because most of this money comes at the end of the year. Anything you want to add to that? You're comfortable with the 50 grand, right?
Comfortable with that, yes.
Anybody have any questions about page 23? Mr. Goldman?
Thank you, Chairman. Page 23, licensing software. You requested 5,000, administration's giving you 37,000. What are we doing?
I actually requested the 37,000. The 5,000 I formally put in my budget request. The other 32,000, I made a case for that during my budget meeting with the county executive, and that's why that's why it was in there. That's as you know, we were afforded the addition of an asset management and procurement coordinator position within the department. We've selected an individual, and this software will integrate an asset management system into our existing financial system. We're still evaluating options, but we know we can get it for this price. There were some options that were displayed at NISAC. We're going to be looking at those as well, and we hope to have a decision by early next year for that service.
Okay. Any other legislators or public have a question, comment? Okay. Item number 20, page 24 is, there's nothing there, so we're good. So we'll continue with this thing. I know you're going to be on here later, John, as well. Is there anything in this section that you asked for that you didn't get? I see you got extra money for that licensing, but you're comfortable with everything else in the budget?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
There's a couple of general comments, if you want me
Sure.
to go into now, that might help you as you're going through the other department's budget. I'm happy to kind of, clarify a few things that I understand might have been confusing yesterday evening.
Is that going to be with the vehicle leasing issue?
It'd be with the vehicle leasing issue and the other consolidated expenses that are in the 1610 budget. I could touch on that briefly just to clarify. If you want me to do it now, I can do it later, too.
Let's hold off until we get there. It's only a couple spots away,
You
but
got
I'm
it.
sure some other people want to get their opportunity. Thank you, John. And going on to the next item is real property tax services, pages 25 through 26. We have Trish McLaughlin here. Would you like to come up?
Good evening, everybody.
Evening, thank you for coming. I didn't see any real issues here whatsoever, but I'll open it up for questions. Legislator Goldman?
Thank you, Chairman. Page 25, licensing software. You requested 7,200, administration gave you 100. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, did you just say this
the
licensing stuff?
7,200,
Yeah. My understanding is it's shifting, the money is shifting
Yeah.
to IT,
DGS, yep.
whatever. So, yeah, that's not going to be out of my department directly anymore, but,
I understand.
Director Lannon will talk about that later.
Same question.
Yep.
Gotcha.
yep.
Everything else seemed pretty straightforward, so there's no issues. Do you have anything
No,
that
I
you
just
want to?
moved things around so that when I saw we kept transferring funds from one thing to the next, I tried to figure out why that was happening and get the right money in the right place, and pretty
Perfect.
much that was, yeah,
Okay, so you're comfortable with this budget as is?
I am.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a great night. Thanks for coming out.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, tax advertising and expenses, page 27. Mike, this is you, I believe?
Yes, this is. This is costs that are associated with when we do our most recent, our auction, our tax liens. We have a contractor, Jennifer Herodes, that does all our tax foreclosures, in rent process, works with the courts. We have a contract with a title searcher, Advada, where it depends on how many, liens are per year. And then the offset, when we go out for title searches, is that revenue.
Okay.
So it depends on, the volume year to year. What I can say is, and I think I'll talk about it in a little bit, but, maybe on the next page here. I'll talk about it on the next page.
Okay. Yeah, it's straightforward, same as last year.
So
no
we just
issues.
use, it's, we'll adjust it accordingly
When necessary.
when necessary.
Any questions or comments from any legislators, public? Okay, we'll move on to the next item, which is expense on property acquired for tax, page 28.
So this is the one that I was talking about when we were doing, the auction. Obviously, the goal is to, get these properties back on the tax roll. So in 2023, you'll see that it was 207,000. That was pretty much all those properties that we had in our 14-15 lien, which was about 144 properties. Now that that's, off the roll, should be back on the roll now, you could see that the taxes are going to be much less. But again, when we go for these foreclosures, and we take the property and then we try to auction the property, that's where you're going to get the fluctuation on that.
Got it. Any questions?
The way I look at it, it's the cost of, doing business, trying to get these, back on the tax roll.
Yep, pretty straightforward. Anybody have any questions or comments? General public, anybody? All right, thank you. We'll move on to the next item and bring back Mr. Tully. This is Central Services, pages 46 through 47. Well, I guess the number one conversation is going to be the lease vehicle issue that we had a long discussion about last night. Let's make sure we have the money in the correct allocations, and if you can give us an overview.
Sure. So, there's, leased vehicle expense is one of the categories that was consolidated into general services. And it's not the only way that departments are serviced with vehicles. There's over 400 vehicles in the county fleet. The vast majority of them are owned vehicles. So with respect to the vehicle leasing line, the expense that you see in a respective department's budget is an actual expense for what their department is going to cost the county based on the number of vehicles they have in their budget. We have an aggregated bill from our provider, which is Enterprise. And so they send us one bill, that comes in, and then the expense is allocated back to the respective department. During the course of the year, changes are made. There's an ordering window for which we have to place orders. That's why there's approximately $100,000 in the general services budget that allows us to order vehicles that are going to be replaced. During the course of the year, we estimate at what point in time in the ensuing year those vehicles are going to arrive. And based on that, we calculate what the 2020, in this case, in the 2025 expense is going to be based on the vehicles that are being replaced. And that's what we did. So it's the expense, as you go through all of the department's budgets, the expense that you see in the vehicle leasing line is based on their actual expense rounded to the nearest 100 of what that department is going to cost the county based on the number of vehicles they have. The determination on whether to lease a vehicle or not is based on a condition assessment of the existing owned vehicles. So if a department has, say, 5 or 10 owned vehicles, those owned vehicles are processed through DPW, Central Automotive, and the chief mechanic does a thorough evaluation of the vehicle, and I talk to him on a regular basis. And we have a list right now of about 17 vehicles that are slated for replacement in the ensuing year. And the funding that's in the budget accounts for those vehicles to be replaced. So I can tell you that there's approximately $996,610 in the aggregate for leased vehicle expenses, and I can tell you every department, as you see in the budget, if you were to pull out the leased vehicle line, I could tell you what vehicles are in what department and exactly how much the actual lease costs.
Got it. If I could ask a question about this, last year we budgeted 100,000, then we revised it to 198,000 change. 199. And right now, the actuals are $176,491.92. And now here we are at 100,000 for 2025. Do we believe that's an accurate number there?
We do, because there's existing encumbrances. What I don't do is I don't sign any lease agreement that hasn't been authorized by the funding level that you've awarded to the department. So for instance, if a department requests a new vehicle and it's approved through Central Automotive, et cetera, let's say the vehicle is $500. I have to encumber, when I sign that lease, or I'm coming back to the legislature looking for the additional funding, I have to sign a lease that commits the county to the future lease payments. So I make sure that my budget can cover that number of months remaining in that year. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. So I wouldn't commit the county to an expense that we can't cover in the department. So at some point next year, there'll be an encumbrance that'll be liquidated. That asset will allow us to continue that ongoing effort of leasing more vehicles with the funding that you've provided.
Mr. Elner?
I'm a little confused here, John. You said that there's almost $1 million in leasing, but you're showing only 100,000 in this line.
That's because the $1 million that's in leasing, less that 100,000, there's 900,000 that's allocated directly to the department. So when that
didn't show up last night in a lot of the departments. A lot of departments, they had zeros.
And that's because either the cost center that you were looking at had shifted for reimbursement purposes. Maybe we put the funding elsewhere. But I could tell you right down to the nickel and to the budget line where the funding is in every department. There was an instance, and keep in mind that this model is relatively new, right? So in the past, in fairness to the department heads that may have been a little confused, is in the past, they used to pick their dollar amount themselves and guesstimate how much they were going to get charged in a lease. They no longer have to do that. I have the exact amount. I provide a spreadsheet. Well, actually, the Commissioner of Finance provides me with a spreadsheet that says, John, can you reconcile this? And I did that. I sent him back a reconciled spreadsheet that rounds off to the nearest 100. Now, there was a miss last night, and I think that you clarified that, and that will be helpful to the Department of Social Services. So we're not going to...
Just a point, in the past that we've done this, it seems like the department heads come in here and say, I've asked for 2 cars, I only got 1, that kind of stuff. How, it's going to be too confusing the way we're doing it now to know that. Last night, we had a person that...
I don't think it's really confusing. I don't think that the departments necessarily understand, and I can do a better job at explaining the process to them. But I think that, today I had a conversation with one department head, and once it was explained thoroughly, she completely understood where we're coming from. There's, you have to look at the request on a case-by-case basis, and from an operational perspective as to, do we have a +1? And when I say +1, when we're evaluating the vehicles, and in addition to the vehicle gets a higher level of scrutiny than an ongoing replacement. So like I said, there's 400, let's say, vehicles in the county fleet. If all of a sudden during the budget process, the request is to increase that from 400 to 410, well, then there has to be an explanation for that additional 10 vehicles, right? Was there an operational change, especially if you're keeping the other 400? Is there an operational change? Is there a new service that's been provided? Has it been vetted by the executive, the legislature? Are you maximizing the use of the vehicles that you already have in your department? Those are all things that we kind of go through, and I can do a better job at articulating that to the departments on an ongoing basis. But I believe the system works. It saves us a lot of time, certainly in the invoice processing. We have one invoice as opposed to departments getting multiple invoices based on the number of cars. And
Okay. Legislator Crowley?
I had asked last evening for a spreadsheet for us to at least bounce off of it with this budget of an up-to-date spreadsheet of the cars that we own and which department they belong to, the ones that are leased, and if they're leased and/or covered by a grant or paid for by the Department of General Services. So if you could provide that to the legislature, I think that would give us some understanding as to the year, make and model, mileage, those types of things, and where we're at, and the standing of what that is.
it was my intention at the end of this meeting to hand over what I call my Bible on the vehicles to the county auditor, so she has access to it. I shared a couple of pages with her today, and we, bounced a few ideas off of each other. I can send it electronically. There's only one department that I need to redact a few things before sending it. That's the Sheriff's Department, Bureau of Criminal Investigation, and others. So we'll redact a few pieces of information and submit you an entire full disclosure list of whatever information you want. And I can assure you, there's not a piece of information that you can ask us for that we can't provide to you, including, where the vehicle was fueled, if you wanted that.
That'd be great,
So,
thank
yeah.
you. Legislator Nestorino.
I think there's a lot of confusion last night, and I think legislators were also confused, because last year, when we agreed to adopt the central service department, I'll speak for myself, we wanted the impression that this will be the hub of where all the vehicles will be flagged, all the inventory will be controlled, and all the purchasing will be done. We also felt that it was that way for the computers, everything would go through IT. And then last night, we had some budgets that had encumbrances in their respective budgets, while others had zeros, whether it was a grant, whether it was a lease. It seemed to be a whole toboggle, and it really is not a seamless process yet, from what I can see.
I would agree with that.
I think not only were employees confused by it, but I think we were as well. And I think that during the budget process, I don't know if you're present at the table when these departments review their budgets and their requests, but I think that's the time to sort out all those wrinkles, because there seemed to be plenty, and the budget was inconsistent in where it was encumbering money for certain things and where it wasn't, including computers.
So I just to respond to that, I did get some direction today from the county executive, who told me that I will be at all of the budget meetings next year, at least for the first part of it, to go over some of those centralized accounts. So that will be a step in the right direction that will help both the department heads and ourselves. As far as some of the confusion exists, I could kind of give you some of the highlights and the reasons why. I was under the impression, and it would be easier on us if that $1 million was put right into the Department of Central Services. However, there are departments that wanted to maintain the visibility of their vehicle expense, and for reimbursement purposes, some of the healthcare departments, like the Department of Health, Social Services, OSR, they do get a significant reimbursement for the vehicle expenses, whether it's gasoline or, not gasoline, I'm sorry, the lease expense of the vehicle. And so we kept it in their department. We could easily provide them with a report so that they could get their reimbursement, but we can improve in future years on how we do it, to consolidate that expense even further.
But wasn't that the purpose of creating the central services department, is to have it all under one umbrella?
Yeah, It is all under one umbrella in the sense that it's all managed from one place, but the expense, as you deliberate and you look at the budget, if if Tom Lannon and myself, if we go first and we provide you with all of the reports, then you will have all of the information respective to each department as you deliberate and go through their budget. Absent that, when you're looking at somebody's budget, you don't know whether they made an operational change and added 5 more vehicles unless the department tells you, right? This way, when you see the budget going from, say it's $8,000 to $20,000, you know that there was some kind of a change. There was 2 or 3 vehicles added to that department, and it begs a question for your review. We were under the impression that the legislature wanted that visibility. If that's changed, we could present a budgetary amendment to make the necessary change to put that entire $1 million in the Department of General Services in one budget line and provide reports to the departments on a regular basis. That would be easier on me, quite frankly. So we could do that, and if it eliminates some of the confusion, I'm happy to do it. But I think it's still well managed the way it is, and we could do a little bit better job of communicating to the departments. Thank you. Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah.
It's information changes still, and as each budget comes and goes, we fine tune all the kinks, and as Legislator Crowley asked for that report, if we had had that too, maybe that would have guided everyone a little bit
Yep.
better to have that in advance.
100%. Yeah.
Let's, Eleanor?
This is kind of realistic hypothetical where I'm having a problem. Department head makes a request that I need total of 6 vehicles. I only have 4. Who does the department head go to for approval for those 2 vehicles, those 2 additional vehicles?
It depends upon what point in time in the year we're at and the
Well, now.
and the immediacy. If they want it right now and they want it for 2025, they would have presented that request during their budget deliberations with the county executive.
Okay, and then the county executive says, no, you're only going to get 1 more, so it's 5.
Okay.
But now I don't see how that department can come to the legislature and plead their case to the financial instrument of the county and say, I really need 6. I have no way of knowing, because everything is just amalgamated in this one line. I can't evaluate and see if this department is being served. And that's the problem that I have. I mean, to me, it's a big problem, because opinions are going to differ, needs are going to be perceived differently, and this goes for the other items, the furniture and the computers,
I could imagine, in that case that you just described, I could imagine the county executive having a problem with that, too. However, if
Right,
it-
but the
if it
money
was
comes from
determined-
here.
It does, and things do happen during the course of the year where circumstances change, right? One of the cases that we talked about today, quite frankly, was a department's perception of a condition of a vehicle versus the mechanical assessment that was done. We're going to take another look at that, and I think that's one of the vehicles that we will replace. It was on the chief mechanic's list of 17 vehicles to be replaced, but it wasn't planned to be replaced with the immediacy that the department had wanted. We're going to take another look at that, and that we can do that because of the budget that you've provided. It does give us some flexibility to make those changes mid-year, and we appreciate that, and I know the departments appreciate that, but they still have an obligation to meet with the county executive, make their case for it, and having an avenue to come to the legislature if they're denied and make a further case for it. I think that's certainly something that, should be
Well, I want to ensure
evaluated
that
closely.
happens.
Yeah.
Legislator Sage?
So, obviously, this came up at the Health Committee last night, and we were talking about an extra vehicle for CPS, which is, I think, directly related to the grant purposes. So I think they were, and we don't know, it's difficult to tell even from the budget process, because maybe one is in central services and one not. And so for us, looking at it, it looks like they were denied a car that was under a grant, so it was so difficult for us to even look at that to see, did they get a grant, did they not get a grant?
Yeah, I
Is it covered
don't-
by a grant? Is it not covered by a grant?
Yeah.
And I think that's the bottom line, it's just, we can't even look at our budget lines and determine what's happening, and the department head
So-
couldn't tell either, it's like, well, we asked for it, and then, so.
I don't think that was the case. You knew she wasn't
So,
getting it.
The only thing I can say is that the way that the budget is presented today, the department heads actually have some visibility of what they're getting and what they're not getting, or if they're getting a new budget. If you were to take that $1 million and put it in the Department of General Services without any formal process, it would be a little bit harder for you to determine whether a vehicle got added until you met with myself and Tom and had that discussion in DGS. And here's where it would have happened today. I'd be able to give you a report, tell you what vehicles are going out, what vehicles are going to the auction, what vehicles are going to be replaced, and what new vehicles we have.
Go ahead, follow up, yeah.
So, given that that car was denied, was it denied, was it not denied?
A case,
And isn't it covered by a grant?
so there was,
And if the car is denied and it's covered by a grant?
so we had an active discussion, and, because a grant covers a car, and this is just a little bit of a sidebar, it doesn't mean that that's the only thing that that grant can cover. It could cover another expense and supplant a different expense elsewhere in the department. But if I get a grant for a car, does that mean that you're going to give me a car to take home? No. I think you still have to make your operational case for why that car is needed. And you still have to make the case for why you might have 10 cars in your fleet that go an annual total mileage of less than 5,000 miles each. You have to make that case, and you have to make sure that you demonstrate that the vehicles that you have are being efficiently used and rotated, and they're meeting the purpose. We had that active discussion today. We are going to take another look at it, and again, we thank you for the additional appropriation, and we'll make that accommodation next year.
Okay. Legislator Montgomery?
Again, I think this is a new process that we're just getting used to. That car was not attached to a grant. It was a car for use for the response team, I believe.
Yeah, which is a valid reason, valid need.
I think
Yep.
on both sides, this is a new process. It's hard to get used to anything, especially something as complicated as this. I think we as legislators have a duty also to, some of us are on one committee, 2, 3, none. And I think it's important in that 4 or 5 day period when we get the budget, and now that we have those conversations with you and with the department heads, so we don't have what happened last night, and the chair of that committee could actually see what's in that budget. It took us a few hours to go through it because there was a lot of discussion. But if it's a one-on-one with the chair of that committee and the department head before the meeting, it would be a lot more efficient.
We're going to learn from this, and we will do better next year. I can promise you that. Yeah.
Okay. Legislator Crowley, did you have a question? No, James? Legislator Elner?
When we created DGS, the whole purpose was to be transparent.
I think
And I have to tell you, for me, this whole process has been anything but transparent. It's very difficult. I mean, as physical services coming through, I want to know what that vehicle, I agree with all the selection criteria, no arguments about that. But I'm failing to see how the legislature gets any consideration as to what vehicles will be added, subtracted, replaced. Now, if memory serves, and with Deputy County Executive Burpo, when we went to this equity leasing program, the sweet spots varied, but for vehicle replacement, it was somewhere between 1 and 3 years and between 50 and 75,000 miles. So we have a guideline for doing that. Obviously, if vehicles have been totaled and insurance reimbursement, thank you, Matt Bruno, to get a replacement over there, there's going to be needs. But from where I'm sitting, I don't know what is going where. I don't know how many miles are on it. I don't know if it's a take-home vehicle or if it only gets used once the person gets here. And my gut feeling is that nominal $1 million, I'd like to put it in sub-contingency. So this way, you're forced to come to the legislature.
Well, if you put it in, I think that's certainly something that you can talk about. If you put it in sub-contingency, we're going to have invoices that need to be paid on the first of the year. And when you take it out of sub-contingency, the request for how those funds get distributed back to the department are going to be precisely how they were presented in the budget there, where I believe, and in all due respect, Legislator Elner, you have a hell of a lot more visibility. Certainly, I'm available, and I will attend any committee meeting, and I'll talk to you anytime you want about any piece of data that you want with respect to the fleet, especially if you're considering some operational decisions. I can provide you on those categories of expenses that were centralized in the Department of General Services. I can provide you with the best information that any county employee can provide you with in your goal to make the best decision for the county. Because it's centralized and all that data resides with us, I have no doubt that we're in the best position to provide you with whatever information you want to make the best decision. And I'm available either by a phone call, I'll attend any committee meeting, provide you whatever reports you want on whatever frequency you would like until you're extraordinarily satisfied with how it's working.
Do you have a follow-up question?
You have a follow-up. So you can easily provide a report for all current leases which are going to need to be paid and continue to be paid, and then a separate report for all new vehicles and when these new vehicles would need to come online.
I have a presentation here that I was going to deliver this evening that has that information in it, but because there's an important Met game going on right now, I was asked to hold off on the presentation. But at any point in time, a special meeting, at a future committee meeting, I can share with you whatever data you want. It's absolutely available.
Certainly, can you email it to the office?
I'll email it to the office, I'll share it with your auditor, share it with your clerk, and any questions you have on it, please call me. I'm happy to go through it, walk you through it. Some of it is a little bit difficult to navigate, but it's all there. And I believe, in the best position to provide you with as much information as you need to make the best decision as you deliberate on the budget.
Legislator Crowley.
Maybe just a quarterly report of the cars as they come in and out would be great, much like the legal reports, just quarterly, every 3 months, send it over, updates, changes, whatever it may be. Each department, lease, its grant, whatever it may be. And then, I don't know if you want to go as far as anything else that you're.
I'm happy to do that. It's very easy.
It's changing in and out, but just so that we are up to date, we know, so if somebody comes to us and says, we need a new car, we can kind of flip back and say, well, it has this many miles on it. You know, we have that report that's been updated every quarter.
I tell you, Deputy County Executive Burpo, that was one of the pieces of feedback I got from him today, is that we should be sharing this well before you have to sit and look at the budget. I could have given this to you, probably 60 days ago, again, 30 days. I can do it at whatever frequency you want, and I really believe that when I saturate you with the information, you'll be.
I think we're good now.
You'll be very satisfied.
Perfect. Anything else on page 46 that you'd like to talk about, John?
Let's see.
You're comfortable with everything else there?
I'm comfortable with everything else there. I don't really have much flexibility in it. With respect to electricity, we're locked in on a rate through the end of this year. Natural gas, we're locked in on a rate through mid-year 2026. We're going to be working with our consultant to do a solicitation for electricity.
When you say locked in, you mean a cap, or?
We're locked in.
We're locked in with a number. So if it goes down?
And we've saved, probably through our efforts, we've saved about $50,000 through the relationship that we have now with our consultant and locking in the rates. And we're going to be going out to bid to try to secure that for the long haul.
Okay.
I will say, the flexibility that you'll see in the budget, it looks like we might be underspending some of those commodity codes. And while that is the case today, that could very well change based on some of the global economic conditions, hurricanes, the Mideast issues, the election. 50 cents on a gallon of gas can change real quickly, as you see when they switch from the summer gas prices to the prices that you see now. But we constantly monitor the commodity market to make sure that we're doing the best we can for the county.
Great, thank you. Any other legislators have a question? Public? Oh, Legislator Sage.
I have a question about the rent income. So, home care's rent income has decreased. Has the rent decreased, or did they?
I think that there was an error in the budget in previous years, and we corrected it in the estimate this year. So I believe that what you see here in the budget for Cove Care, that's what was collected actually in 2023.
Yeah.
23.
Correct.
Yep. We have some work to do on that lease, by the way. That's another thing that we'll be talking about as we move forward.
Legislator Nasarino? Yes, sir.
So when we look at Cove Care, it's $75,828, and then we look at Camp Perlick at $36,000. In my memo that was sent, one of the questions I had, if should millions of dollars or $1 million be invested into Camp Perlick, would there be any overture to modify their lease? Because they really have a sweetheart deal going on here.
I think that that's precisely what was done in prior administrations when there was no exchange of county cash in the construction of the most recent building that they built there. I think the previous administration elected to open up the lease and have a trade-off to some extent that recognized the fact that the county was acquiring an asset that we weren't paying for. So I think everything is on the table.
I was thinking about amending that to increase it based on the $1 million+ that are going to be invested there. It's with the obligations, and they're still going to be the same rate. Is there any discussion whether or not that would be amended?
No.
Part of the decision?
No, I think that the goal in the most recent LOI was that this project would be a standalone project separate and apart from the, I understand, yeah, but I'll answer your question. It was going to be a standalone project separate and apart from any discussion regarding a lease. If that comes up at a subsequent date, and it might, I believe the administration will address it then, but right now they wanted to look at the one-for-one replacement of that building, and I'm sure we'll talk about that more as...
And the lease is expiring soon,
Yeah.
no? Isn't it coming up soon?
I think that was a long-term lease. That was almost 15 years, if I recall correctly.
Okay. Legislator Montgomery?
With all three of these, Cove Care, the MH, which is the mental health facility, that rent went down, and also Camp Ehrlich, which the rent didn't go down. I'm happy to see the rent going down. You've heard me comment over the years. These three facilities provide services to Putnam County residents that the county can't otherwise provide, particularly Camp Ehrlich with educational services. We just heard from one department whose employees go there for training. And I think, you know, what's happened over the years, especially with Cove Care, and I hope you will be favorable toward them in your lease negotiations because of what they do for the county. It is our only, for the public's benefit, it's the only resource. It's the county contracted mental health provider. And although they don't provide a lot of services over on the west side of the county, through what you'll hear later with the Phillipstown Behavioral Health Hub, we are hoping to partner with them. And this rent decrease is a good thing, I think, across the board for all three of these. While I don't favor keeping rents the same for, you know, candle making operations or golf courses because they're making a profit, I'd like to see those rents increases and them to pay their electric, but I'd like to see rents decrease for these operations.
We'll work hand in hand with the legislature as, you know, we were well aware of your authority over the leases, and I'll work with the law department to make sure you have all of the facts to prove it.
Yeah, I think we have a last question here from Legislator Elmer.
How confident are you that the gasoline costs are going to go down by 5%?
About as confident as I am that they're not going to go up by 10%.
Okay, so I'm just thinking that maybe we need to put more in that line.
I think overall, and in full disclosure, we purchase, and I'll hand this out. I only have a few copies, but if you wouldn't mind.
Make a motion to accept the additionals.
This is how we estimate.
In favor.
We estimated the purchase of approximately 200,000 gallons of gasoline that's consumed by all departments. And we estimated, because of the various ways in which we purchase gasoline, we estimated a little over $3 a gallon as our cost. So there's going to be months where it's under our estimate, and there's going to be months where it's over. But at the end of the day, I think it'll balance out. We've done a pretty good job so far, and we'll see the warning signs well before we exceed our budget limits, and we'll be talking to you.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on to our next item is,
Thank you.
thank you, John.
Thank you.
Information technology, Tom Lannon. Come on down. This is going to be pages 48 and 49. Welcome, how are you?
Great.
Good.
Mets are winning.
Okay.
You didn't see the last update, though.
Somebody's phone's updating.
Thank you.
Computer equipment, 52130. Just wanted to touch base on that one. It's up to 140,692 tentative. Is that a good number for you? And can you explain? It's up 40,000 from last year.
Yes. So this was based on the department's request that came in for equipment that they needed. There was a form that they filled out. They sent the form into the department. It was reviewed by myself for needs. It was a needs assessment. Some of them we pushed back on because there were grants that I knew that they could get. There was reimbursements from New York State, so those were pushed back to allow them to get the monies that they needed, not to have to come from our budget. So, yes, this number is sufficient for us.
Okay, any questions or comments, Legislator Elner?
Yes, you have another computer equipment line, 52630, where I see it's gone down about $80,000. Could you please tell me the differentiation between those two lines?
Yes, 52630 is equipment over 5,000. So it's servers, and we actually lucked into that. That is our SANs, which are our large storage devices. We use that to pay leases, and one of our SANs came off lease. We purchased a new SAN at a substantial savings because technology had changed and the price actually had gone down on storage. So we were able to get the equipment updated and save money on the lease.
Good news. Legislator Crowley.
54382, computers, again, $317,453.
5482.
382.
Yeah, that's CB, that is our contractor that we use. It's actually down from what we had last year. We were able to realize some savings there despite the fact that our vendor raised their rates, their hourly rate, which is actually a good thing. They were undercharging us for years, and I was resistant to change, and they said they couldn't go forward anymore at the rates we were at, and they increased them slightly. So we saw an increase in the hourly service, but I was able to cut back on the number of hours that we actually feel we would need to use them. So we were able to realize some savings there.
Good.
I have one more.
Go ahead.
The contracts line. 54646. Same page.
For me, I have my cheat sheet.
Sorry.
54646?
Yeah.
That's just Esri. That's our CAD system. That's for training for our GIS equipment, for our GIS person and employees. That's 8,000 that we use when we need it to have them come in and do consulting work for us.
Great. Legislator Elner?
Yeah, and there's almost a $100,000 increase in 54510 machine maintenance.
So that is because we assumed the maintenance of the Bureau of Emergency Services for technology equipment that they had. So all we did was bring it from one department into our department, so we have oversight. And in fact, the majority of that is for the UPS, or uninterruptible power supply. That's for the building, and that's where our servers are. So it's important that we maintain that.
Legislator Nasarino.
So I'm still a little confused about the services process. Because I'm under the impression that every computer order could go through you, but yet we're seeing encumbrances within the budget, the individual budgets. So how are we aligning this? This is sort of the same question we have with cars, but it seems to be a little bit cumbersome.
Yes, I think what's really going on there is that there are some departments that get New York State reimbursement or had grant opportunities, so the money was left there because this is new for us, and we're just kind of flexing and getting it in, and I think eventually it will all come back. But the problem is, and specifically for our department, like Department of Social Services, I can't purchase that and get the reimbursement for it through my department. It actually has to come from their line in order for them to get it. So it is important that some departments, it has to stay in there so they can get the reimbursements that are necessary. However, when it's a county asset, and they are also unique in that that is a state network for most of social services. So there is some equipment that's, the state owns that equipment, outright owns the equipment, and it rides on the state network. We have nothing to do with it. If it's going through our budget, I still approve it. So it still goes through me to be approved, to make sure that it's the right equipment. So I have oversight of it, it's just that the line isn't under me.
It's just hard to distinguish what is and what wasn't in the budget this year, based on some of those allocations. You know, like me looking at it at face value doesn't know that, we don't know if there's a grant and they have to purchase, you know, we're learning about that now.
Right.
But cars or computers that were funded by a grant stay within the budget, so it's not, it wasn't identifiable to us, so it caused a lot of confusion.
From my standpoint, we had open dialogue with the department heads, so they knew, and in some cases, there might have been confusion on their part on where they were supposed to put this into their budget, but they had sheets that they filled out, that they sent to me, and they were informed if I were moving them forward and putting them into my budget, and they were informed if I were not doing that.
My question really is everything going through you?
Yes.
Before it is dispersed within the department?
Yes, at some point through the workflow in Munis, I am the person that has to approve that line across the board.
Legislator Montgomery?
I'm just curious about travel. You only have $50 for travel, and you're all over the county.
They won't let me travel.
How do you, I see you everywhere.
They said I can't travel. No, so
to come to work every day.
it's the same problem that I had in that line, because you think it's travel, but it's really not travel. It covers your tolls, and that's why $50 in there. All of my travel, and you saw the line increase, comes out of education and training.
Okay.
So that's what, when I travel, even when I go to NISAC, that comes out of education and training, which caused confusion last year. We had to transfer money around, so this year we got it right.
Yes.
Is there anything you asked for that you did not get?
No.
Okay.
Okay. That was going to be my final,
Quickly, do you have a similar report to what we requested of Director Tully for how many machines are new, how many are, I think you get the gist.
Yes, I can provide you with that.
If that's not a big deal, I'd appreciate it.
We have over 1,000, and it's yes.
The new.
100%. I can tell you all the new machines, even through Tyler Munis, I can create a report on all IT, all technology that was purchased in the last year, so you would have oversight of that. Yes, that's easy.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. And you comfortable with the budget that you
Yes,
said?
very much.
We're good to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to insurance expense. Matt Bruno's here.
Good evening, everybody.
Yep. Page 50 is
Commissioner Lewis. He's a good buddy of mine.
54.
I broke everything down for you. If you'll do me the honor, I'll explain everything to you. It's not that many lines, so it's pretty easy to go through, but what I'll do is save the general liability to last, because that's the big one. So essentially, we have defensive driving fees of $1,000. That pays a proctor or a teacher to come in person to teach defensive driving to those that can't do it online. And that's our DPW department. working with the commissioner, DPW, to set a date to have everybody in the BES auditorium and have a teacher come in. We normally would do it quarterly before we got into the online codes where everyone can do the defensive driving online. So with that being said, I just keep it at $1,000 because if you do it quarterly and $250 a pop, that's your $1,000. We might not get quarterly. We might only do it twice a year, depending on what individuals in the county can do it online and what individuals can't. So we'll set that up and have somebody come in and do it. We have a safety material and supplies of $4,500. That's the online codes that we purchase. So the online codes are done by Certus Brands, and they're $14 per code. We just ordered 30 codes today, and that was $448. And the majority of all those codes go to our sheriffs. Because they're always driving, they always need defensive driving, then goes to our DPW, but we have to do those in person, and that's where the in-person class comes into effect. However, the online codes are really for those like me and Commissioner Lewis here who can do it online, that need to have it, that have the ability to drive. They may not drive, but if they have the ability to drive, they do defensive driving. And that's the cost of the codes. And on a personal note, it takes 15% off your own insurance. So I might as well do a commercial for that. I mean, so it's good. So I encourage everybody to do that. Miscellaneous is $500, and that's, it's miscellaneous, whatever, comes in that we might need to pay, whether it regard books and or materials. Really, that's all that's going to cover. You'll notice that we have 1.3 requested and a tentative 1.6. So that 1.3/1.6 reflects the following. I'm going to keep general liability to last. Our crime policy. Our crime policy is with travelers. That renews August 1st of every year. And essentially what we have is this year it decreased by a whole $62, or less than 1%. So again, that renewed on August 1st. And so it went from $9,270 to $9,218. So it's a big win. It's a big win for me. So that's through travelers, and that renews every August 1st. We're good with that. Cyber risk, we go through Cowbell, and if Tom is still here, which he is not, Cowbell really likes him. He does a really good job with protecting the county's computers, our software, and as a result, and a little bit of haggling myself, we were able to decrease that premium by 23%, or save $5,000 on this policy alone. We were able to decrease our deductible from $1,000 to $50,000, based on the fact that they have full confidence that, we're protected well. And that's good. And that's, Tom and I talk all the time, and he really is on the up and up when it comes to cybersecurity. So that just helps me a lot. Our golf course is through Selective Insurance, and that renews January. So we have an August renewal, and a January renewal. That's with Selective Insurance, and that does the Tilly Farm, does the restaurants, and does the golf course. That decreased from $87,000 to $84,000. About $3,000, or 3.49%. We don't have any claims. No one's tripping and falling. No one's suing us because they ate a bad hot dog or something. So that accounts for cost savings. We take really good care of the golf course. That's on the up and up. Tilly Farm is really good. Despite all the events we have there are no accidents. I make sure their insurance is all covered. And then that hard work reflects on a decrease in premium. So that's really good too. That actually went, like I said, from 87 to 84. We have workers' comp, and that's through PMA. That is a 3-year contract with a 2-year renewal, which I renewed, so 5 years in essence. And that just automatically goes up $1,000 every year, basic contract stuff. Nothing really exciting about that. Our excess insurance was with Midlands. That went up about 7.2%, and I'm going to explain what I have in plan to kind of save us a few dollars with that. So it renewed for 2 years, so I got a little bit of a discount, but it still went up 7.2. Again, the private is anywhere from 10 to 11.2. It's really 11.2 in the reality of it all. So going up 7.2, it's still going up, but it's trending downward. Our SIR is $1.5 million, and so this excess protects our workers' comp. We don't have any workers' comp claims that ever come close to this level, right? So based on that success, and if I look to renew this in 2026, I might look to increase the SAR to $2 million, which a higher SAR reduces our premium. And I'm going to tell you why. Historically, the county hasn't ever reached a $1 million mark, let alone 1.5, let alone $2 million. So saving approximately 32% in premium is worth increasing it to $2 million and absorbing that extra risk. Not to mention that workers' comp is self-insured and I'm in control of that 100%. So nothing's getting that high, especially when I can control the comp claims, I can control the payments, I control everything. Commissioner Lewis and I are in always communication. If there's a big claim that's coming through, we make sure money's allocated, et cetera. So that's really easy peasy. We have our actuarial evaluation, and that just remains at $7,500. That helps Mike and I determine where the reserves are for workers' comp, making sure we're on the up and up, making sure we don't have any kind of gaps, make sure there's no decrease or increase that sporadically changes anything. And based on our last report, we were very good. We closed a lot of claims from the past, which saves us money in the future, because a $400 claim from 1980 is not a $400 claim in 2024. So when you ratio, it's going to be an $800, $900 claim. So we have to reserve for that. So I'm in control of closing those old cases, in essence, trying to save us some money. So general liability. So in essence, our general liability, including our taxes and fees, et cetera, increased 7.9%. And that's with the prior settlements from last year that went through. If you recall, last year was an 8.1%. So even though it still went up 7.9, we're still trending down, which is still good. Now, as we all know, there was a large settlement that came into play. And speaking with Commissioner Lewis, I'm not certain whether that premium under law enforcement liability is going to go up. A couple years ago, we settled another big case where the premium for law enforcement liability didn't go up right away, but was affected on the loss run a year after. So contingency-wise, I'm not really certain if it's going to go up 4, 5, 6%. I'm thinking it's probably going to go up somewhere around 10%, just because of the amount of the settlement. And that's fine, because I would take that settlement and that deductible any day. The problem is we're going to feel it a little bit on the premium side, but when you think, what are we going to feel, you're talking maybe 80, 90,000. When you're looking at the big picture, that's not really a lot, but when you're looking at, when you add that to the other premiums, such as property, such as, the auto, such as anything else that the general liability will affect, and then you're looking at public officials, healthcare, inland marine, et cetera. When you add an 8.9 or a 10% increase in just law enforcement liability, it adds to that premium. So, with that being said, if I estimated a $1.2 million premium, right now it's around a 1.1, so I figured maybe it's going to go up 100,000. When you add 1.2 with everything else, you get 1.4. So that's clearly above the 1.3 that I posted. However, if it happens that law enforcement liability goes up 10, 11% based on that settlement, it hits, and it hits in time for an annual renewal. I'm guessing that the premium that's 1.1 now might be 1.3. When you add that all up with the crime, cyber, golf, you get 1.548 million, and there's my 1.6.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Legislator
Tell
Carlin.
you, thank you so much for the most charismatic budget performance thus far. Maybe Mr. Tully is like a weatherman.
I don't know, maybe.
This is the flow of Putnam County.
Up the meeting a little bit.
Yeah, you're welcome.
With your enthusiasm.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Legislator Elner?
Yeah, to Matt, thank you, and also John. As our lessees, how often do we review the policies that the coverage that they have at Tilly and at the golf course? And can that in any way be used to reduce our policies?
We can, when we get close to the August renewal for the GL, maybe March, April-ish, we can have our broker start looking into policies and having contingency plans. So what is that? So, for example, law enforcement liability, that might go significantly sky high under NYMER. However, like we did with our cyber, we took cyber out of NYMER and went with cowbell and saved a ton of money. We can certainly do the same thing with law enforcement liability, but we can still do the same thing with selective.
I was saying that the actual leasees make sure that their coverage is in order so that we could just kick in as an excess liability coverage.
Absolutely, we could do that, yeah. And they would, let's see, when does, that might go about around the time. I can reach out to some of our attorneys and see what that policy is, but absolutely, we could do that and just put that on excess, which we could save a little dollars here and there. Absolutely, it's a good idea.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, unless any other legislators have any questions or comments? You're comfortable with what you presented? No issues?
Yes,
We're
sir.
good.
I'm good to go.
Have a great night. Thank you for coming.
All right, thank you.
Take care.
Thanks. You're welcome.
Okay, moving on to,
I try. I don't know if it's that exciting, but I try. See everybody later.
page 54 from Mr. Lewis. We have,
I don't know if I can top that.
Let's go Mets.
ready, taxes on county properties.
Yeah, these are
page
just,
54.
thank you. These are just our, oh, Nancy, sorry. These are our special district taxes, special assessment taxes, water, sewer on our county-owned property.
Okay, zero issue there. Questions or comments from anyone? Then we'll move on to the MTA mobility tax, page 55.
That is our, hold on. Oh, sorry. That is, my bad. Sorry. So anyway, this is $63 million, which is anticipated between our salaries and all our overtime, our temp, and that's at 0.34%. So that's just
Mandatory
a-
expense.
Yep, that's just that's like FICA.
There you go. All right, thank you. This is page 55. Any questions or comments? Moving on to
Sorry.
page 58. This is the contingency fund. This is money that was placed in contingency. Most of the stuff is either related to a lawsuit or employee salaries, I guess. It seems to me that this is a new procedure, I guess, that the county executive has given to us. He has placed potential raises for departments within this sub-contingency issue. I've never seen it before, so I guess we'll open it up for discussion on how to move forward with something like this. Mike, you have any words of wisdom here?
Yes. So
First, we should start by saying that
Yes.
the management raises this year for management employees was 2.75%.
Correct.
And
correct.
the numbers that are here in the contingency that was placed in the budget in contingency are for the sheriff's department, the county clerk's office, the legislature, the coroner, the county executive's office, and outside agencies.
The outside, that's a different,
It's a different topic.
and the legislative branch, inclusive of the legislature and the audit.
The office.
Yep.
Yes. Words of wisdom, Mike?
The only thing I could say is I had gotten a legal opinion on it and was instructed by the county executive to put it in there. But that $32,000 rounded up is the 2.75 based on the bargaining unit and the management.
Which they received and is not in contingency.
Correct.
Right. Legislator Yonke.
Yeah, as chairman of the legislature, I sent a letter to the county executive with a request for whatever, at that point in time, at the time we made our request, we were unaware of what the county executive would do with department head management raises. So we asked that whatever the raise number was that he came up with, which we've done or as long as I've been here 8 years, it's always been done where we put a request in and it's been honored. This is the first time ever it was not honored. So our staff, auditing staff, all the requests we made were not honored. And I would hope that you would take that out of sub-contingency tonight.
Okay. Any other legislators have questions or comments? Legislator Nasarino?
Well, it's like deja vu with the sheriff and the coroners and the county clerk. And this is unprecedented, this procedure, and I don't think this is a good procedure moving forward either. It just seems disingenuous in the sense that this was done this way. I don't know the rationale, but it's certainly not good government to do this. First of all, the county executive has no oversight over legislative raises to begin with. That's not under his purview, number one. But to cherry pick a certain few individuals or a few different, the same positions as last year is really mind-boggling as to why. And it doesn't complement the administration in any shape or form, in my opinion.
Legislator Montgomery?
In preparing for the budget and going through it in the short time that we had since Thursday, I did raise this question with the county executive, and it's my understanding that, as Legislator Nasarino pointed out, the legislative budget is not the county executive's purview, therefore he cannot change it, and in fact it is in the charter, it's a county law, that the county executive cannot change the legislative budget or the sheriff's budget or, any elected branch of this county. He can't change it. So much like you guys just did with the ag districts, right? Which wasn't even a law, it was a resolution. Like you suddenly decided to enforce this resolution that we passed many years ago. I believe that's what the county executive is doing. He's.
Well, what would you like to do with this?
I'm explaining, I don't have an opinion of what I want done with it. I don't want to see elected officials get raises. I believe in raises for our staff, and I've had the same question, like what happens with these line items that are in the contingency fund, and I also have that question for outside agency funding as well, $75,000. Or do we get that out now, or do we wait for when those agencies come before us and then get it out? So that's a lot in one question,
Yep.
but, so to disparage the county executive, he's doing what we did basically with the ag districts. He's following the county laws.
Hardly.
Okay.
No comparison.
Legislator Sage?
So when the legislative budget came out and our chairman, Yaki, sent the legislative budget around, it had that line in it. We all had the opportunity to look at the line. It requested that line from the raises, whatever the management raises would be, from the county executive. So I don't buy that argument that it was in the resolution. I mean, we actually.
It's a law.
We asked for it in the line, and it was requested in the line, in the budget.
You didn't put it in your budget. You didn't put it in your budget that you submitted.
Okay.
The chairman, because he
What-
was busy.
Legislator Sage has the floor.
Changing laws.
Legislator-
You shouldn't pay attention
Can
to
we-
it now. I will, because the chairman was too busy creating laws that would serve him. He didn't put in the raises for you guys in the budget. That's my theory. You are
Read the
Unbelievable.
letter.
I read the letter, it was in the budget.
Can we have some,
No, I'm not gonna let her lie.
absolutely, listen,
You didn't
That's a
put it in the
lie.
budget.
can we go,
It was in the letter, just like.
I'm going to go back to Legislator Sage, who has the floor. Let her finish.
We get to sit here and listen to you go on and on and on, and then you interrupt everyone else. Just want the opportunity to have my voice heard as well. And my point was that this was requested from the county executive. It was not honored by the county executive, and that's all I want to say.
Well, he honored it by putting it into sub-contingencies where it's at. Legislator Elner.
I just want to clarify. These are not raises. These are cost of living adjustments. And in the past, I've refused mine, me personally, I'll refuse it again. However, I don't feel it's proper to deny anybody a cost of living adjustment, and we should be consistent across the board.
Thank you.
What number are we talking about? I went to the back.
We're on contingency funding, page 58. Go ahead, Legislator Crowley. Yes. Trying to get everybody even before we go
I
back.
appreciate that, and I'll be quick. From what I understand, it was the format that it was put in was the problem with accepting, because it was a memo following it up with
Page
zeros.
58,
And I
all
could
of
be
these.
wrong, but that was the understanding that I had, was that it was put in for zeros, followed with a memo, and that goes against the charter in the format that it has to be presented. Is that correct? No.
Nonsense.
Okay, that's my understanding, and that's what
Okay.
I know past practice, you've done it that way,
Good.
but
Nonsense.
Mike, do you have, I don't know if you can answer that question or not.
Listen, all I could say is that I had gotten a legal opinion on it, and I took the directive, obviously, of the county exec.
Okay. Michelle, Michelle, did you want to comment on that?
Well, yes, because for the past 20-something years, I've been assisting with the budget, and you prepare a letter to the county exec, and I have an Excel spreadsheet, and on each personnel line, I have, if management receives a raise, please include.
On every line.
On every line.
So it was in the
And for the
budget.
stipend, that's what it adjusted.
Despite me being too busy
And it was in the
doing
letter.
charter changes.
And it was in
Did
the
you want to
letter.
add something? I'm sorry, I don't know if you raised your hand.
I'm not sure which one.
Back to Legislator Montgomery?
He can't touch the budget,
Our
but we're
budget.
giving him permission to touch it.
It can't work like that. It just can't work.
Go ahead, Legislator Montgomery, what do you have?
It has to be a formal, so if we're referring to that letter, and that letter constitutes you putting in raises for the budget.
Not the letter,
in
it's a spreadsheet.
It's on both.
You have to adopt the budget. In that same letter that I signed as well, with the chairman, as the minority leader, I signed the same letter. And in that same letter, where he's saying he put in for the raises, I requested that we not give raises to the elected officials, and we don't fund an outside attorney, and we don't fund unnecessary things that just serve us. Let's serve the people that work here and the people that live in Putnam County, and let's just get on with moving this out of sub-contingency and doing what we're gonna do tonight and move on.
Legislator Yaki.
The letter that Legislator Montgomery is referring to is a letter that she and I co-signed to the clerk of the legislature, directing her to submit the budget to the county executive. The county executive was given a letter and a spreadsheet as backup, and every line on the spreadsheet said, if management gets raises, please add the management percentage to each one of the 9 legislators, the 4 members of our staff, 3 members of the auditing staff. That's the fact. Everything else is nonsense.
I hope the next chairman will put in the raises in the budget.
Okay, again, this is a
waste of time.
First of all, the letter was sent in September, so the percentage of a COLA increase was yet to be determined, which is why it was left blank. There's no way to anticipate in September what the percentage would be. We also have $75,000 for outside agency. We have a boatload of people sitting here tonight waiting to see if their not-for-profits have been given the careful consideration of the administration. Now we're doing the administration's work by putting this back in our laps to decide and divvy up the pot that he put into sub-contingency.
Okay, let's get on with it.
Okay, Legislator Yaki.
Yeah, one more. To show you how vindictive this was, when I asked the county executive before the budget was published, we had a meeting about the budget, I caught it in the budget, and he told me that I should have put in any number I wanted. So he said, maybe you should have put 5% in. Well, then we'd be working here to back off the number. Rather than a simple request, instead of honoring a simple request, whatever you do for everyone else, treat us the same way, he chose not to do that. And that was an intentional act, and that's.
And again, I got to say, this is we're talking about a COLA. I know we keep saying raises. It's 2.8, 2.75%. All of management received it. It's not, in my opinion, a raise, it's just a cost of living adjustment, which, is affecting many people here on this one page. Legislator Crowley.
So the COLAs that couldn't we have based it off of all the COLAs that all the unions have gotten, because it's all the same?
It's it's decided year to year.
But that's,
Management.
management, it was all
It's your
the same
budget.
both years. It was 2.75, and that's what I think the unions got, was 2.75.
Right.
So it's about the same, so we could have based it off of that.
And that's maybe what he did,
And I
but
think
it's
last
management.
year we did, I think 3% was put in there with the stipend, and I could be wrong, Paul, you can correct me.
We
I
did
thought
it the
you,
same
I
way
thought
last
you,
year.
I thought you had put it in with 3% and said, and correct me if management is different.
6 of one, half a dozen of another.
No, but that's not.
Okay.
That's not the way it was done.
Anyone else have a question or comment? Anybody from the audience would like to chime in on this hot topic of ours tonight? All right.
Just want to confirm, all
Yes.
of management received a COLA? No one was excluded?
Well, the people that were excluded and was put in sub-contingency are on this list.
So we have,
Elected officials.
once again, we have the county clerk, the coroners.
It's elected officials and the legislative office, the entire legislative office.
There's other
And
elected
audit.
officials.
Right, and I'm going to go through them one at a time here. So I'd like to make a motion to move out of sub-contingency the COLA increase for the county clerk. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'd like to make a motion to move out of sub-contingency for the sheriff on the amount of the COLA. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to make a motion to move the coroner's COLA out of sub-contingency. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to make a motion to move the county executive's raise out of sub-contingency. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
No.
One no from Legislator Goulman. I'd like to make a motion to move the legislative office out of sub-contingency, and this includes all the legislative office members, including the legislators, out of sub-contingency. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye. And I just want to state, I have never accepted it, and I am not going to accept it again.
Okay, Legislator Goulman is one no. Just to correct the record, Legislator Goulman, on the sheriff, the county clerk, and the coroners, you were a yes vote,
Correct.
and a no vote on the county executive and the legislative office. Okay, I just want to make sure we had that clear. All right, that being said, anybody else have any other questions for page 58? Legislator Masserino.
I was personnel chair quite a few years ago, and at that time, if any legislator wished not to accept a COLA raise, all they had to do is submit a letter to the Commissioner of Finance. People tend to grandstand, say they don't want it, they're not taking it, and take it anyway. So if you are inclined to deny your COLA raise, and I have no skin in this game whatsoever, I won't be here in 2025, but instead of saying what you're going to do what you said, do what you said.
Legislator Crowley.
I didn't take mine, I submitted a letter, Mike, and I haven't
Correct.
taken mine, just to put that on the
Not-
letter. Oh, okay, I just want to make sure.
I would appreciate your verification.
Just
Yes.
saying anybody who
Didn't take
stands
it.
up and says it, and this has been going on for years. Kicks and screams, grandstands, makes a whole big scene, and winds up taking
I
it
wrote the
anyway.
letter. and
Okay.
I sent it,
All right, I think point made. Legislator Montgomery.
So I vote no on the raises every year. I don't think I kick and scream. I think I simply,
Take them,
I take them.
take them.
I don't, I
Say you
would
don't
much
want 'em,
rather,
take them.
I think I have the floor, and I think you're
Yeah.
doing exactly what you
Right.
said I do to you. So this happens at every meeting, and you're really funny. So I'm gonna laugh, but I'm gonna go on with my point
Go on
here.
with your point.
I will go on with my point. I'll go on.
Go ahead, Legislator Montgomery, go ahead. You have the floor.
Let's go on with my point. My point is that I vote against the raises every year. And because I will not give my money to the legislature. Instead, I will do the things that I do with my money, which is volunteer for Songwriting with Soldiers, which is take foster kids fly fishing, which is volunteer for community members, because we don't have county transportation over on my side of the county. So I bring my constituents to the doctor and to go grocery shopping. So that's what I do with my money that I take and my 2.5% raise that I get from the county. What do you do, legislator?
Okay, can we,
What do you do, legislator Nazarino?
all right, we're going to move forward at this point. Thank you very much. Moving on to debt services, this is pages 272 to 273. I don't think there's any issues here, but Mike, any overview?
Just go over here. Yep, this is just our outstanding debt service payments. I think we've done a pretty good job. We're slated to get another $6.9 million off of our books, of which approximately 5.2 of it is principal, and that's a good thing.
Thank you.
Pretty straightforward.
Any questions or comments? Okay. Last item is financing of capital projects, no number to refer to. Mike, you have any words of wisdom?
Yeah, just before, I guess we'll talk at length tomorrow about the capital plan, but again, as I mentioned in my presentation, $6,180,000 is our general fund contribution, if you want to say, using our reserves to go to the capital fund. I have here somewhere, I don't know if you guys want me to pass this out here, but if we were to go hypothetically for a $6,180,000 bond, using a 15-year, what they call a PPU, which is the average life of it, it would cost the county almost $1.8 million over that 15 years to borrow. So obviously, with our current financial condition, which is good, and the conditions that are, where we are right now, I would not recommend to borrow. And again, that would save $1.8 million.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anybody questions, comments? Thank you very much. I will make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye.